This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellow Wall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 486 of the Yellow Wall Pods. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about the start of the season, 2 wins over Phoenix Lübeck and Eintracht Frankfurt, transfer news, season's expectations, and we will look ahead of Saturday's match against Werder Bremen. For all that and more, joins me Matthias Zug. Hello Matthias, how are you doing?
Hello Stefan, I'm doing quite well. How are you?
I'm doing splendid, as you all know. So first of all, Nick Campion, a long-time listener of the Yellow Wall Pod, sent me an email about an hour or two ago asking me if he needs to have a stern word with my boss because I don't have that much time anymore doing the shows. Actually, the reason there was no season preview is actually my fault because, as you all know, I was on vacation and part of that time I was in Germany, which means I got to go to the game as well. But more importantly, I told Lars that I'd rather spend the precious time I had in Dortmund with my friends than record Yellow Wall Pods. So sorry
because
for that.
Because we're not your friends, Stefan.
Not my long-time real-life friends, if that makes sense.
It's only been 10 years.
I know, but my high school friends, if you will. But yeah. So apologies, but my priorities were shifted a little bit. And but also a shout out to Thorsten at fly_b1909 on Twitter, because he sold me, or us rather, my wife and I, the 2 tickets so we could actually attend the game, because it is not that easy anymore to go and buy tickets, because nowadays if you want to go through the second-hand market, which is what I've done in the past, now you have to be a member for that, and I am not a club member, so maybe that's something I need to change. But anyway, also here Lars Pollmann, as you've already heard. Hello, Lars. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hello, Stefan. My indignant interjections notwithstanding, I'm fine, thanks.
Very good. Also, Lars, thank you for the cup that you sent us over. It's already in a lot of use, so thanks for that. And
still haven't been paid?
I'm sorry. Yes, I still have to send you the money. But yeah, we'll sell that after the show. We don't have that much time, and we have lots to get to. So, Matthias, obviously there are a few transfers to talk about, but before we do that, I think we could just talk about the start of the season. As I mentioned, Dortmund did defeat Phoenix Lübeck in the DFB Pokal, 4-1 victory in the HSV Arena, whatever the heck it's called, I don't know, Volksparkstadion maybe. And then, of course, more prominently, a 2-0 win to start the Bundesliga season against Eintracht Frankfurt. I don't know how many words you want to lose over the first round of the German Cup, so I would just suggest to skip that and jump straight to the Frankfurt match, because, Matthias, I thought it was a very interesting game to watch from the stands, but what were your observations from Wisconsin and the television?
Well, my viewpoint was it was probably more fun to watch it in the stadium than on TV. It was okay. I mean, I've watched worse Dortmund matches. It felt like the first Bundesliga match under a new manager with a new tactical direction and a few new players and players playing in new, less familiar roles. So that, in that case, I just kind of wasn't surprised by that. I've seen that play out before. But, it was okay. It was interesting. I thought Dortmund got really lucky at one point and then quickly kind of changed the narrative of the match then.
Yeah. I think you're talking about Chaibi missing this absolute sitter, and I was sitting in the north stand, so I had a really good view, and I was surprised seeing the replay how close the miss was in the end. Even though I don't know. I think it probably was relatively easy to score that, but he just, I don't know, just tried to put too much power on it. But maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about. But either way, I for sure thought when the cross was hit into the box, even though it was whipped with some pace, that was going to simply connect and score. But because the ball was really flying high, almost up toward me, but obviously stopped by the ball net. But nevertheless, then to see Jamie Gittens score that worldie on the other end was of course amazing, and did help Dortmund put on the trajectory. But it's not like Dortmund had a billion like high quality chances up to that. Lars, what do you make of the overall approach of Dortmund in this game, and maybe also the lineup? What were your thoughts on Schein picking, say, Schlotterbeck as a left back, Malen as sort of a wing back / winger on the left side, and Adeyemi up front? I thought it did raise a couple of eyebrows on my end. How was it for you?
I mean, I think in terms of defense, it kind of feels like Schein doesn't want to make the tough decision whom to leave out from Anton, Schlotterbeck and Süle, because obviously they are all in great shape after the summer break, have all done well in preseason. I think Anton has quickly gotten used to new teammates, new surroundings, which is to be expected when you sign a full German international who's, no longer a kid. So I think right now he just doesn't want to have to make a call there, and makes use of the idea of that asymmetrical defensive line, which sees Schlotterbeck as the nominal left back, but whenever they're defending for real, I think you could argue it's more of a back three with him as a left-sided centre half. That's all fine. I mean, clearly left back is a position that's going to be a bit of an issue throughout the season, unless they surprise us on like deadline day with a loan signing or whatever, because you only have Bensebaini, who obviously did very well as a sub in this game, but generally speaking hasn't really done much at Dortmund. And maybe Riazon when he moves from the right side to the left. Then obviously you need to be sure you can trust Jan Kauto in terms of, your tactical approach. Is he ready for the Bundesliga, Champions League, or that? Obviously he played in Spain, different league, but still very high level, arguably higher level than Bundesliga, certainly at the top, I would say. So defensively, I think that's all fine. I didn't have any qualms with that. And I can also understand giving Adeyemi the nod up front, because he's been there from the first day of training camp, however you want to call it, in the summer, because he wasn't at the Euros. Maxi Bayer obviously only joining relatively late, needing a bit more time to acclimate, presumably. Sebastian Aller, not really an option at this point, I would say. And obviously Moukoko wasn't going to be an option even before now moving to OGC Nice. So that makes sense. But the one thing that 100% didn't make sense to me, Daniel Malen on the left. He's not a left winger. He has never been a left winger. He's never going to be a left winger. He's a final third player. You need to play him to his strengths. And I mean, was it Watz, one of the regional papers, even suggested that Dortmund put Malen in the shopping window against Frankfurt, which is a very odd thing, to have that idea. I don't think that's necessarily in their mind. And if it was, then it's not the greatest of sales pitches to put Malen on a position where he just doesn't function very well. So I think that doesn't make sense to me. The only explanation I have kind of is that, Gittens has been sort of better when coming off the bench over, his short Dortmund career so far. And obviously he made a massive impact off the bench. So maybe he Schein wanted to, give Gittens a bit of a kick after perhaps not, doing too well in the games he started in preseason or in the cup. But that just didn't make sense to me. Obviously, the second half, which was much better than the first half, also coincided with some personnel changes, and I'm fully expecting, some differences in the starting lineup in what was it, Bremen?
Yeah.
Bremen, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think really this is sort of a starting lineup that's set in stone. I honestly believe that it's still all very stopgap, if you will. And I don't really think Adeyemi will play as a number 9 much anyway, especially with Bayer coming in, and of course Guirassy now already back in, I guess, part-time team training. So after the international break against Heidenheim, maybe we can expect Guirassy already make a cameo in that position as well. Probably not from the start right away, but nevertheless, I don't know. The only thing that annoys me a little bit is that we all know that if you have Malen and Adeyemi both playing, it makes the most sense to play Adeyemi on the left side and Malen on the right. So I might have actually switched those two positions, but whatever. What I did like is, and I think I had a pretty good view, is how Dortmund do press. So maybe that's also one reason why you wouldn't play Aller. It's just because of the pace that Dortmund pressed Frankfurt's defense and build up play consistently throughout the game. Adeyemi's pace obviously is a major factor in that as well. And I thought, it's been a aspect that I've complained a lot about in the recent seasons, that Dortmund don't really press well, and when they do it sort of somewhere around the halfway line and never really high up. And I thought that beginning of the season, of course, but from what I've seen in the friendlies and now what I've seen in the first 2 games, I am optimistic that Dortmund play a much more energetic and higher up pressing style, where they win the ball high up the field and score from these opportunities. And obviously it also helps to control the game, dominate a lot. I mean, they did have 70% ball possession in the end, even though we can all say the first 30 minutes of the game were more in Frankfurt's hands, where I think Frankfurt had like 5 corners or so, and Dortmund not so much going forward for themselves. But yeah, from that playing style overall, and when we take an outlook to the season, for now I'm optimistic that from the early observations, I will like what I've seen now, considering that we have a lot of short passes, not a lot of long balls, and high pressing. Obviously there are far more aspects to football than just that, but early signs, I'm relatively positive with what Schein has had to offer so far. Matthias, what are your thoughts on how Dortmund's approach are? Granted that it's still very early in the season, things may A, change stylistically, and B, the automatisms, as I like to say, are far from there yet.
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen so far, I've liked. It's kind of what we discussed before you went on vacation, that my hope was that Şahin would play more in a style that he played under in the club years, and that Dortmund fans have come to expect from their side to play. And I think the basic foundations for that are definitely there. We can see it, but also, like you said, it's still really, really early. And I'm always reminded of, when Edin Terzic took over from Lucien Favre, that half season where they won the DFB Pokal, there too, it was a more aggressive, forward-thinking, pressing style, and then it really didn't end up being that after he took over for Marco Rose. So time will tell, and the question is whether or not Nuri Şahin is going to stick with the plan that he obviously clearly has in his mind, or if he wants to play it safe, as Terzic really ended up doing last season. So the foundations that I think we can all recognize as being there are very, very positive. I like seeing that. I think that's the way to build up on this, especially with the squad at his disposal. And it'll be curious to see how it shakes out over the next few weeks. I think that, after about a month and a half of competitive matches, not against, lower league amateur side in the cup, then we'll get more of a feeling. Again, this really felt like a first true match. And so the signs are good, but we've been tricked before.
Yeah, I mean, usually Dortmund then go on and lay an absolute egg on the first away game, which is, of course, is this Saturday. But yeah, overall, I think we can be all happy with this game. Frankfurt to me is still a relatively good team and a nice measuring stick for an opening match. And of course, what also needs to be praised is just the sheer individual quality that Jamie Gittens showed when he scored that goal. Obviously, you would love a few more goals from sort of more combination play, but it was still nice to see him receive the ball on the left side from, I think it was Pascal Groß, who played really well himself, I must add. And just to, with 2-step overs sent, I think it was Christensen completely away from the ball. I think by the time Gittens took the shot, Christensen was facing the yellow wall instead of the ball. So that was a really nice shimmy, and of course the finish to sort of kiss the underside side of the crossbar was just perfection. So really happy for him. Also plagued from a lot of injuries to score that goal and to underscore the importance right away and the impact that he may or may not make this season. I think we can all hope for a relatively positive trajectory if he stays injury free. And especially after the preseason, I thought that Duranville, and of course the first game against Lübeck, I thought that Duranville was going to play instead of Gittens, but it was Gittens who came on and he absolutely took that chance. And when he scored the second goal, so first of all, shout out to Ben Subaini, much maligned player, but his tackle in the box definitely gave me a heart attack in the stands, but in the replay you can actually appreciate how artful and artistic it was, and then to get the assist was nice, and of course the sort of turn around the defender, and then the finish by Gittens also really great, really mature football, and good to see. I don't really count too many other chances that Dortmund had in this game, so you can also praise the efficiency if you will. Lars, what do you make of this performance, and how do you think it's going to develop throughout the season with Jamie Gittens?
His individual performance?
Yeah.
I mean, when you come on, I don't know which minute, and then score both goals in an otherwise relatively harmless game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he came on around the 60th minute, if I'm not mistaken, together with Maxi Bayer for Adeyemi and Malen.
I actually thought, for all the criticisms that you can level at Shine's, starting 11, the subs all worked out. I mean, some had more impact than others, obviously. I mean,
well, first of all, maybe it's good to note that they were around the 60th minute mark and not in the 85th minute, which is something I criticized Terzic a lot for.
I mean, I think that's more of an apocryphal story, because I don't remember too many games in which they made 5 subs and the first one came in the 85th minute, but that's by the by. I mean, I don't know how much we can actually say about Gittens, because he obviously decided the game. I actually think one of the differences between what will happen under Shine, which obviously we can only catch glimpses of at this early stage, because this right now is basically an extension of preseason with the way the modern game works. Such little time with teams during the summer because of long international breaks and all that. But the difference, I think, is that they have more of a plan, especially in possession. You already mentioned, some more cohesive pressing, I would say. So the difference to Terzic, who, to his credit, I guess, in even the best of times, Dortmund always were quite reliant on, those individual, moments of brilliance. And even though it sounds weird after this game where obviously Gittens was the can opener, as they taught him to say in German after the game. And obviously also scored the second goal, which was nicely done.
Can opener and dagger in one game.
Yeah, but the dagger wasn't really necessary, I don't think. I just feel like there's more of a plan, generally speaking, and less of a reliance on individuality, which is then added as a plus because obviously they have players who have that up their arsenal, especially Gittens, Duranville, who can beat men. Malen and Adeyemi have that extra gear of pace, which obviously Duranville has as well, but we have to wait and see. I'm a bit hesitant to, ascribe him too big of a role right now because obviously he's basically not played for like 2 years now. In terms of Gittens, I think what I like best about this game perhaps is what happened afterwards because Şahin in the press conference was quite open and honest about things and basically made clear that the expectations towards Gittens are higher now. He's no longer, the kid that gives you 20 minutes off the bench. He's supposed to be what in Germany we call a Leistungsträger, so someone who the team can rely upon somewhat consistently. Obviously, he's still young, but he's been around for some time now. I mean, we can all probably remember that the goal against Freiburg. That's now 2 seasons ago, basically. So there's quite a bit of development, and I think the early signs are there that he can make that leap from great talent, but who is he in the grand scheme of things to someone they can rely upon. Yeah.
Speaking of this post-game presser, first of all, we should also point out that Jamie Gittens had his little moment in front of the yellow wall, singled out and fans chanting his name, so that was very nice. But Shine also talked about Gio Reyna in that news conference, and I personally obviously came on in the 81st minute for Emre Can, but he looked from the other subs. I mean, he came on with Mecha and Bensebaini. Even though Bensebaini had this amazing challenge, which might have been win-saving, nevertheless, I thought that Gio Reyna still had the best cameo of these 3 late substitutes and had some nice key passes overall. Looked pretty good, and Nuri Shine said also that Gio Reyna has a role to play here, and maybe just stylistically he fits much better into the system than previously. Obviously only 10 minutes and hard to say how much will come of that, but we have been on Gio Reyna's case a lot, especially you, Matthias, so if there's some positivity to glean from it, I'm happy to do it, honestly. Matthias, I don't know if you want to have your 2 cents on Gio Reyna. If not, we have not really discussed the transfer of Maximilian Bayer yet, who is, of course, taking over Niklas Füllkrug's number 14, but stylistically also a much different archetype of a player. So if you don't want to talk about Gio Reyna, talk about Maxi Bayer a little bit and what you think he will do in his Dortmund career, because a lot of experts and a lot of pundits have praised him quite a lot.
Well, I think it's only fair that I chuck in an opinion on Gio Reyna, because like you said, I've been definitely on his case, justifiably so in my opinion. I've always said highly talented player. If he gets his head screwed on right, he is an asset. And so hopefully that is the case now moving forward. And then, bring it. I mean, that would be fantastic. So as far as Bayer goes, I didn't really see him much at Hoffenheim because I try to avoid Hoffenheim matches like the plague. So to be brutally honest, I can't say much to that effect. There are certain clubs where I just don't care to read about, see anything about, and Hoffenheim definitely fall into that because I just don't care. Honestly, most of the time I forget they exist, which is a good way to live your life. But as far as the expectations go, well, at the end of the day, one thing that Dortmund were clearly lacking last season was consistent goal scoring. And as such, that is the expectation as to someone like him, especially with a let's call it a higher price tag, especially compared to his striking partner, Guirassy, is that you want that to happen. He's young, so there's a lot of time there. If he stays fit, blah, blah, blah. But really, the barometer will be goals and link-up play. Obviously, Füllkrug scored some important goals, but overall his goal output was okay. It wasn't as bad as some people like to make it out to be. It wasn't as good as it, in my opinion, should be. But what he brought to the side was obviously his hold-up play and his link-up play. And if Bayer can facilitate that, and then also with the flexibility of playing on the wings or behind the striker, then I think that's an asset that you can move around a few times, bring in Guirassy, and kind of have more of a fluid attack in that regard. So hopefully that plays out in his favor and the club's favor. But for me, it's still very early to see and judge on that regard.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's only 21 years old, and coming from Hoffenheim to Dortmund, definitely a step up. But I perceived him as a very confident young lad so far. Also made it clear that he came to Dortmund to win titles and play for the championship. So I always like that when players outright just say that as the ambition when you come over. From my observations for the 10 minutes he had, I think he is a very hard-working player, has a very good instinct to play against the ball. I thought his pressing moments and also recovering when Frankfurt managed to push up the field a little bit, which wasn't that often. I was quite impressed because, that the discipline and the basics look like they're all there already. And that to me is very important because a lot of players come here, I think Daniel Mahn, for example, is the perfect example, who have a lot of attacking talent, but just zero instincts when it comes to playing any defensive or the other side of the ball, if you will. And those who are there, I like the channels and the spaces where he ran into. Even if he did not receive the ball, I think I remember who it was who had a chance to play him in, slot through, might have been Brandt or so. Not entirely sure anymore, but either way, I think he'll come at, he'll get his scoring chances for sure in different cameos. But first impressions, certainly positive. I overall also like the transfer stylistically. I think he'll be a good fit. But as you said, Matthias, it's still early days. But nevertheless, Lars, I also want to give you the opportunity to talk about Maxi Bayer a little bit, if you have watched Hoffenheim a little bit more than us two, maybe.
I mean, that doesn't sound like a tall order, because I mean, I don't necessarily seek out Hoffenheim games, but sometimes when you're in the business, as it were, you can't run away from it. And also, I think people might remember that Bayer scored a brace against Dortmund when Hoffenheim beat Dortmund in Dortmund last season.
Painfully aware.
Obviously, one of those goals was deflected quite heavily, so it wasn't necessarily a wonderful finish, but you saw some of the qualities he has. I'm very excited about this signing. I think he's the kind of attacking player that I haven't really had. There was a lot of talk about, the striker hierarchy and being 4 deep with Guirassy, Füllkrug, I guess, Moukoko and Aller. But without, or outside of Moukoko, who's a bit different, those were 3 number 9s, and Moukoko, who is basically a short number 9, I would say. It's not like he's, great on the ball or moving around too much.
8.5.
or moving to the wing or whatever. I think Bayer gives them much more flexibility, especially if they want to play with 2 strikers, which obviously Guirassy is very accustomed to from Stuttgart, playing with Dennis Undorf most of the time, which was a deadly combination in the Bundesliga last season. Bayer offers you great runs. He has great speed, which when you're basically a secondary striker, which I guess is going to end up being, his preferred role once Guirassy is up and running, you have to have that pace to make the runs in behind. He's very adept at playing on the shoulder of the defender because of his speed. I think if you want to, make a comparison. I think it's always difficult, obviously, and people shouldn't take this the wrong way when I say this, but he kind of gives you the good things that Timo Werner used to give Leipzig and the German national team. And obviously Timo Werner is a bit of a joke now because he suddenly forgot how to score goals and hasn't really done much at Tottenham, as Matthias will probably be able to ascertain. But but people need to remember that for a good few years at Stuttgart, especially at Leipzig and also for Germany, Timo Werner was a very good striker and, scored a lot of goals, got on the end of a lot of chances, especially on the counter-attack, which is obviously not necessarily what Dortmund are going to be playing too much under Nuri Sahin, I would think. But, just from, his profile characteristics, strengths, I think he fits very well into what they want their secondary striker to be. Now, obviously, if Guirassy was out for another 3 months or so, then maybe that I would have a bit of more of an issue because Bayer is not a pure number 9. He's not going to lead the line. He's not going to go into infights with big center halves or whatever. So he's going to be better served playing off Guirassy, but I can definitely see that being a very strong combination for Dortmund, especially also in the Champions League, where Dortmund are presumably, at least in some of these games, going to be able to play a bit more on the counter with Bayer's pace. So I cannot really stress how much I like basically the entire transfer window with Groß and Couto, but Bayer might actually be my favorite signing.
Yeah, well, that's the perfect transition because Lars might as well keep talking. What are your overall thoughts with the transfer window? No, maybe we should talk about the news that came out today that Dortmund did loan out Charlie Özcan to VfL Wolfsburg and Moukoko to Nice, if I'm not mistaken. So, Lars, I think you read up on the blurb that Dortmund posted because I quite honestly haven't. But maybe talk about these things first, just because they're somewhat breaking news.
Yeah, I mean, in both cases, the writing was on the wall, I think. Both Moukoko and Özcan weren't in the squad for either Lübeck or Frankfurt. And whenever that happens at the start of the season, especially with Moukoko, who's been there the entire summer, Özcan obviously had a bit of more of a break after the Euros with Turkey. I think basically it was a case of them telling the players, you're going to find it tough to get playing time. Might as well look for alternatives. And from what I understand, in terms of Moukoko, the agent talking to Fabrizio Romano of all people, that had very little to do with the decision to let him go, because they had identified him at the end of last season as someone who's quite considerable wages after extending his contract early in 23, after that breakout, 3 months, which garnered Moukoko a spot in Germany's World Cup squad for Qatar. Those wages were no longer consummate to what he does on the field, because he's injured quite a bit. He hasn't broken through as the number 1 striker for Dortmund, and so they weren't looking for a solution. Now he's going to OGC Nice in Ligue 1 for 1 year. It's a straight loan without. Now there is a buyout option, but it's not a option apparently that's going to be mandatory if Moukoko plays 15 games or scores 5 goals or whatever. So it's more of a classic loan. Nice apparently have an option for
70 million euro.
Yeah, it's reported somewhere between 15 and 18. I think for Dortmund it's almost more important that Nice are covering the entirety of Moukoko's wages, because you'd never like paying players who don't actually play for you. I think it would be in everyone's best interest if Moukoko had a good season at Nice. Maybe not a great one, because then Dortmund look a bit bad, but play quite a bit, score 12 goals in Liga, and have them exercise the buyout option, and then Dortmund also have a sell-on clause whenever he leaves Nice, which I would argue or presume that Moukoko is not going to end his career at Nice, because it's not the nadir of the footballing world. So ultimately it's one of those deals where the situation had kind of become untenable, and there needed to be a solution. So I'm fine with that. And then Özcan is a straight loan, no buyout option for Wolfsburg. There were a few options for Özcan in the summer, as far as I know, from clubs in Turkey, especially because he's a full Turkey international. They always have a market in, Istanbul and some of the other clubs in Turkey, other places in Turkey. But he wanted to stay in Germany. He actually wanted to stay at Dortmund, but they've made it quite clear for him that there wasn't going to be a place for him. And, I think he probably fits what Ralf Hasenhüttl wants to do at Wolfsburg a bit better than what Xhaka wants to do at Dortmund. I've seen quite a few people on social media be quite happy that Özcan is gone. I don't necessarily understand why, because it's not like he was a bad apple or anything. He always, from what I can tell, put in his best performance. It's just, a bit of a disconnect between what he's good at and what Dortmund needs. So I have no problems with him personally and wish him well, because I like him. I think I was quite high on his transfer 2 years ago from Cologne, and I still think he's a good player. He's just not what Dortmund need at that position.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. I mean, as far as Moukoko goes, I'm happy for him because Nice is just very beautiful, and so he should enjoy that, and hopefully he'll finally get the playing time that he needs to develop into the player that he certainly can be. Matthias, your thoughts on Özcan and Moukoko finally making the move and also getting off Dortmund's wage bill, which I think is probably a relief.
Yeah, from a wage bill perspective, obviously it's extremely good. I agree with Lars as far as, Salih Özcan goes. I always really liked him. I thought he always put in a solid effort, was kind of a leader on the pitch and communicative and things like that. And also just, like you said, not exactly a right fit for what Dortmund were or are looking for. As far as Moukoko goes, I think it could benefit him also personally to be out of Dortmund for a season, because as long as he is playing for Dortmund or in Dortmund or on the bench, he's always the unrealized potential, the high praise and hype that he had from like the age of 12, 13. And in Nice, he doesn't have that expectation from local fans. So I think that can also be very freeing for him mentally. I hope at some point he also frees himself from his agent, who's obviously not the easiest person in the world to deal with either. So I think both loan transfers are very good for both players and the club.
Yeah. So overall transfer window, Lars said he was very happy. Matthias, obviously deadline day is on Friday, if I'm not mistaken, for Dortmund, and so things can still happen. I don't know if there are any hot leads right now, maybe to any left backs potentially. No idea. Don't think I've seen anything. But overall, if you look at the transfer window as it is now, how would you rate it? I don't know, out of 10, or just overall thoughts of the team building that has been done throughout the summer?
I would give it a 7.5 out of 10, just because I think not having that reliable depth at left back is a problem in an area. I mean, Maatsen would have just been perfect, and he played so well, but that's obviously gone and in the past. So yeah, it's somewhere between 7 and 8 out of 10. I think they strengthen in some of the right areas. Pascal Gross, I think, is a fantastic signing. Anton is a good signing, and then Guirassy, a goal scorer, and with Baya, a young player that's highly flexible in different positions. And then obviously Couto at the right back position has potential upside moving forward for the club, not just as a loan signing. So overall, again, 7 or 8. If they would have gotten a solid left back option or been able to hold on to Maatsen, I probably would have pushed that to a 9, maybe even a 10 overall. But as things stand, there's still that left back position that I have some question marks behind. I also want to say that looking at Niklas Süle so far, it's almost like that's a new transfer because he is unrecognizable physically and also attitude on the pitch and stepping up in pace and so on. So, I mean, that's another high positive there where we didn't know which way that was going to go, especially now that Mats Hummels is gone.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have to make up for Mats Hummels and Marco Reus leaving the team. So that means this transfer summer or this off-season can never be a 10 out of 10 because I'm butthurt over these players leaving for sure. But Lars, again, you just already hinted at your optimistic outlook, but maybe also a little bit more detail on and your thoughts on the transfers in general. I don't know if you want to go one by one, but yeah, I would love to hear from you about those.
I mean, first of all, I am the L'Equipe of transfer windows. I don't give out 10s because I don't think the perfect transfer window exists just by nature. So 10 is out of the question. So I think for Dortmund, is it a 9 or is it an 8? I think it's more of an 8 because there are some issues left. I mean, obviously the left back position, as Matthias alluded to, but also, I mean, I don't know exactly what the plan is if Nico Schlotterbeck, I mean, knock on wood that it doesn't happen, but if Nico Schlotterbeck tears his ACL on September the 1st, they are monumentally F-worded because they don't have anyone else. Basically, they'd have to play Benzebaini and Riazon the entirety of the season and have one right back because I don't think Almugera Kaba is ready to have any reasonable impact. But I mean, as always, when you make sweeping changes, you can't fix every problem in one transfer window. And in being fair, I think it's an 8 because I like every single one of the signings they made. I think Anton is very solid. I think when they signed him, we basically said he was one of the two most logical options for a center half this season. The other being Hiroki Ito, who's a left-sided center half, and that obviously would clash with Schlotterbeck a bit. And now Ito is injured, so maybe they got lucky there. We've already talked about Bayer. I'm very excited by what I'm seeing from Kauto so far. Or I'm unsure. Maybe it's Kuto. I would say Kauto, but nevertheless, he looks a real player. The delivery, especially when he's moving forward on the right side, he seems to be giving them something they haven't had since Hakimi left. Obviously being very different players, but just that element, I think it's always exciting, and Dortmund have been fortunate to have very exciting fullbacks, which is not necessarily a naturally exciting position, but being with Guerrero and Madsen on the left and Hakimi and now Kauto, perhaps, that is very exciting to me. Obviously, there seem to be some fitness/tactic concerns because he's not been unleashed so far. I think he trained individually on Tuesday, but I think before long, he's someone that we will have a lot of fun watching. Groß, I have been a fan of Pascal Groß for years now because even when he was at Ingolstadt under Ralf Hasenhüttl, who some listeners will remember I advocated for Dortmund coach quite a few times over the years. He's just that, floor general type of player that they have lacked a bit. I would like him to be the defensive midfielder in some of these games and not, Emre Can, but that's another issue. And then I think the thing that might put the transfer business on a whole over the top might be if Guirassy is who I think he can be, and obviously what he's shown at Stuttgart is very exciting. Because obviously, seeing as he hasn't played yet for Dortmund, he's only returned to team training or parts of team training now. I think he kind of flows under the radar a little bit. But if he gets to, let's say, 90 or 95% of what he did at Stuttgart, he's going to have a massive impact for Dortmund, be a much more convincing center forward than what they had with Füllkrug and the year before with, Modest, Moukoko and Aller. So all of those signings are very exciting. And I also like the fact that they've been able to, shed some players that they don't want anymore, don't need anymore, whether that's, letting Marius Wolf's contract go its distance, now getting, I don't want to say get rid of, but people know what I mean, Moukoko and Özcan, who weren't really featuring in their plans. I think this is something that they've not necessarily been able to do over the last few years. I remember quite a few times when the transfer window in the main European leagues went shut and people had to hope that maybe Torgan Hazard can be loaned to Belgium, which then happened. But, it doesn't seem to me like outside of Soumaila, Koulibaly, whom I think there's still a chance he leaves before deadline day in the main leagues. I think other than that, the squad is basically set. There's still a few holes, but that's the nature of the game. So yeah, I'm very optimistic about it. 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, one question though, because this name hasn't come up, but your thoughts on the loan of Tom Rote, or not loan, I think it was a full-on transfer. Dortmund just have a buyback option of Tom Rote to Union Berlin, considering our left back malaise.
Yeah, that's the only thing that makes you wonder a little bit, but I think he didn't want to be here. I think he's not necessarily the type of player that Shine wants to play there. I think people look at Tom Rote being tall and think, hey, he could probably play centre half as well, but he's not very defensive minded. He's much more forward thinking. If people were to have watched Kiel last season, they would have noticed that, because he was much more involved in their attacking play, had quite a few assists, chipped in a few goals as well. Just didn't seem like a great fit for what Shine wants right now, but obviously I think it's a very good opportunity for him to evolve further in Berlin, and I would assume there's a pretty decent chance he comes back in like 2 years, and maybe as a full German international, because that's obviously a position that doesn't have a lot of cover in international football generally.
All right, last question, and it's a personal one, Lars. How do you feel about Ole Pohlmann leaving?
Very happy. Because I don't like it when people get my name wrong.
Yeah, I understand.
Although I have to say that I think, isn't it the case that he goes by Olinho on his jersey at Rio Ave, which I think for a player coming from the third division in Germany is a bit much.
Sorry, that's the fact that I have not seen so, but yeah, Olinho is a good one. Yeah, we'll refer to you from now on as Lazinho. Makes perfect sense to me. But yeah, Matthias, maybe a quick look ahead overall. What do you think are realistic expectations for Dortmund this season? And then, of course, more in the short term, what do you think awaits Dortmund in Bremen?
As far as season outlook, I think Champions League spot is another minimum expectation. Top 3-4, challenging for a title. I would never say that at this point, because I have no idea what to expect right now of this squad and this coaching team. So yeah, I think a solid top 3, top 4 finish is minimum and realistic. As far as Bremen go, I didn't catch their match against Augsburg. Bremen are always kind of one of those, they're either really difficult for Dortmund or Dortmund seem to blow their doors off. I don't really know what to expect there, other than it's not going to be an easy match for Dortmund. They can't sleep on this one, of course, and it's another good test. I mean, I like the fact that these first few matches in the Bundesliga are against solid teams, not really weak teams that you would expect Dortmund to blow away, or starting right off the bat against, Bayer Leverkusen or Bayern. So these are really good tests to see where Dortmund sit and build up for the future without being pushed to two extremes one way or another. I think it's a match Dortmund should win. But again, I don't entirely know what to expect from either of these sides right now. I think Bremen are okay. I don't think they're great, but they're always just uncomfortable for Dortmund and can always put a few past Dortmund when they least expect it. So eliminating some of those stupid corners and things like that, where Frankfurt did have a few moments where it got a little dicey. So let's keep the sad pieces to a minimum.
We have a sad piece coach now. So
yeah, well, that's awesome. Just need to throw in coach as well, I guess. But I think
they did work with a throw-in coach last season.
That's true. But I think if you eliminate those things, Dortmund should do well and play to their strengths against Bremen.
Yeah, the positive thing is I'm already looking forward to the game. So for what it's worth, that's good. And I'm right there with you. I don't think Dortmund are a championship winning team just yet. I think you can say maybe a year away from it being the year for them. Just because, as we just discussed, I think the left back position is definitely an issue, and if Emre Can is just starting 6/8, depending on how he and Groß line up during a game, and is your de facto team captain, I just don't think making a championship winning run really is on the cards, because as you said about Charlie Özcan, Lars, it's not, I don't per se hate Emre Can, but I just think stylistically he's also not the greatest fit. So if Dortmund get a better number 6 on that position, I think then they are much more well-rounded team. But just from that setup yet, I just don't think Dortmund are there. And as we all, as we look at all the transfers Dortmund have to make, I think this whole thing needs to grow, and it'll take some time, and there will be some growing pains. And so overall, I'm optimistic, but I don't think Dortmund are going to play for the championship. But I think the way the Bundesliga might be shaping up, it might still be close and interesting going into the second half of the season, because even Bayern Munich don't look like they're going to just steamroll everyone. Bayer Leverkusen struggled against Gladbach more than I anticipated, and VfB Stuttgart obviously those 3 key figures. So we'll see what's happening. I don't want to really give a too in-depth season preview, honestly, because I just don't know enough to do that. And so that's sort of my expectations. And as Werder Bremen goes, just like you, Matthias, I honestly have no idea what Dortmund can expect there. I just hope Dortmund show more of their own principles and score a couple goals on the transition by turning good counter pressing or pressing moments into high quality chances and go from there. So if that's something I wanted to see against Frankfurt and didn't quite happen, so I hope that some nice turnovers can be forced against Werder Bremen, who probably have not the same build-up capabilities as Eintracht Frankfurt have. Lars, your season expectations?
It's odd because I'm the more optimistic one for the entirety of this show, because I don't necessarily think they aren't a championship contender, if that makes sense. The question is it a normal Bundesliga season for everyone, or is it a Leverkusen doesn't lose an entire a single game in the entire domestic year kind of deal, which after beating Stuttgart a man down on penalties and then winning in the 101st minute in the Bundesliga against Gladbach away from home after squandering a 2-goal lead, it seems to be shaping up to be another strange Leverkusen year. Obviously they haven't lost too many important players, so a winded answer to say that I think if Leverkusen don't get hit by too many injuries or whatever, I think they are very much the team to beat. Bayern have a better squad than Dortmund. I don't think that's arguable, but they seem to have quite a few injury issues already. Obviously a head coach who's very much an unknown, and unlike Şahin, he doesn't know the club. We don't know how he's going to react if they have, as they have had over the last few years, quite a few times, one of those, autumn blues or whatever. Stuttgart, I don't necessarily count as, a member of that group of teams. I think Leipzig are much more likely to be, because they've only lost Dani Olmo, and that, he was obviously one of the best players at the Euros, but last season he was injured quite a bit. They've kept Xavi Simons. They haven't had to sell Openda or Šeško, so I would expect Leipzig, Dortmund, Bayern to be on a somewhat similar level behind Leverkusen. Then it's, how does the season progress? All that good stuff. And as for Bremen, quickly against Augsburg, they were very lucky because Augsburg had a goal disallowed, which was quite strange. And then Augsburg didn't get a pretty much nailed on handball penalty, which was one of those strange incidents where the referee went to the screen and saw a clear handball and just decided not to give a penalty for it. So Bremen could easily have lost away to Augsburg. And we also have to mention for Bremen that they might lose important players before deadline day. I think Marvin Duksch has now confirmed he's staying, but for example, their centre-back Milos Veljković is wanted by Osasuna and Atalanta. So there might be a bit more turmoil there. And then obviously, can they replace them in time? Are those players going to play? So it might be a good time to catch a team like Bremen that is always dependent on what other bigger clubs do in the transfer market.
All right. I can't wait. Thank you both for coming on. And I also am looking very much forward to the season overall, but also the next couple of days and weeks. I think they're going to be very exciting, especially with the deadline day coming on. I have a hunch that Dortmund will do something more, that some player I've not heard about yet will maybe come on. And we have a Club World Cup to play. There are just a lot of interesting things ahead in the season. So new Champions League format too. And I think the Champions League draw is not too far away either. Might be tomorrow, right? A lot of things to discuss on the next episode. But until then, as always, everyone, thank you for listening. And once again, I wish every Dortmund fan that, you really enjoy it more than last season, even though we had an amazing Champions League final run. But I just feel like, in general, the mood wasn't where it could be. And I just wish that for us and for everyone that Dortmund bring a little bit more joy back and a bit more fun back. Anyway, those are my final thoughts. Until then, goodbye.